Hello. Now, we all know what discipleship is, so why are you watching this video? But do we really know what discipleship is? This video series will begin a rethinking process for what discipleship is, what it is not, and how effective discipleship can help to build strong, vibrant, and lasting faith. Let me begin by making 3 introductory comments that may provide a bit of motivation. Firstly, let me reinforce that discipleship cannot be taught from the pulpit or in a classroom alone. Discipleship is formed through community and through godly habits, in the practice of mission, and in the context of everyday life. I love this quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, where he said and wrote, "Christianity without discipleship is always Christianity without Christ, and discipleship is about following Christ." And lastly, making whole life missionary disciples is the core vocation of the Christian church. Imagine with me for a moment that you were a great evangelist, that you could fill stadiums with 25,000 people, and God inspired you so much, and through His Spirit, lives were convicted that whenever you gave an appeal for people to follow Jesus, all 25,000 would come to the front and choose to follow Him. And imagine you were such a gifted and strong preacher that you could do this every night of the week, and every night 25,000 people would say, "Yes, I want to follow Jesus." If you did that every day for a week, for a month, for a year, continuously, how long would it take for the whole world to come to know and choose to follow Jesus? 2, 3 years perhaps, every day? 5 years? Actually, the answer is 750 years. So perhaps there is a different way where we should consider how we can be involved in this process of discipleship. So let me ask you this question. Why did God create apple trees? What's its most important purpose? What are apple trees designed to do? Primary importance. Take a moment to discuss that question with your neighbour, and I'll just give you 10 seconds because it's an easy question. Looks good enough to eat. Time is up. Now, I'm sure that someone out there said to you that the most important purpose of an apple tree is to make apples because they're great, and this one looks good enough to eat. Well, actually, that's not the right answer. You see, that is just a strategy that apple trees have towards its greater purpose. Because the greatest purpose that an apple tree is designed to do is to make more apple trees. The seeds in here will make more apple trees. I wonder what our purpose is. Let's revisit a well-known statement from Jesus, one of the last statements he said before he went back to heaven, where he said in what we commonly know as the Great Commission, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you." We know it. Hopefully we live it. We could almost recite it. Now, I used to be a teacher trained. So I love language. I used to teach grammar. And if you look at this sentence, the words of the Great Commission, I wonder if you can pick out the verbs as they appear in that Great Commission, because verbs are the doing words, the action words. And Jesus, before going back to heaven, was on about what is your action here. So there are the first 4 I've listed on the screen. You can see them there. Go and make and teach, baptize, and teach. Well, I'm not a Greek scholar, but my friends who are tell me that of those 4 words, which we in our English Bibles see them as verbs, only one of them is actually a verb. I wonder which one it is. Make up your mind and lock it away. Do you think it is the go, as Jesus commanded us? Or is it the make? Or is it the baptize? Or is it the teach? Well, go is not the verb. Go is actually a participle. Look that up in Google at some stage. But it means, in the original, not a command to go, but as you are going. Mission is not an option. As you are going. Baptize is not the verb. It's assuming that will happen. As you are baptizing, it's a participle. Teaching is not the verb. It's a participle. It's assuming that is what will be happening as you are teaching. The verb in the Great Commission is to make. Make disciples. That's the focus. That's the intention. That's the action word. That's the command, to make disciples. So I wonder how we're going with all that. Well, there are many definitions of what a disciple is. So for the purpose of this video series, let me suggest a simple suggestion that a disciple is a lifelong, active follower of Jesus. So based on that definition, how are we going in outworking the Great Commission to make disciples? Well, these are some of the books on my shelves which tell me that we're not doing very well. When you read the titles, Almost Gone, Goodbye Generation, You Lost Me, Almost Christian, Mend the Gap, these and many more all speak about a common pandemic around our world, where people who've grown up to know Jesus or encountered him in homes and churches, when they become older, they walk away not just from the church, but from the Christian faith. Let me give you just a couple of quotes. In the Goodbye Generation, we read, despite all our incredible children's, youth and young adult programs, we haven't been able to stop this mass exodus from our churches. We haven't just lost one generation, we're losing several. In the book Already Gone, we read, students didn't begin doubting in college, they simply departed by college. If you look around in your church today, 2/3 of those who are sitting among us have already left in their hearts. And lastly, from Mend the Gap, if the church is hemorrhaging young people, we have to ask ourselves if it's because we address the issue of discipleship too late. Is the spiritual education we provide for our young people neither consistent enough or rigorous enough to provide them with the means to have a strong and stable, and let me add, robust faith in a time when there are many challenges to the authenticity and relevance of our beliefs? But probably the book and the statistic that has disturbed me the most in recent years is the one from the Christian Research Association in Australia, where Philip Hughes records this disturbing figure where he says more than 50,000 young people a year are leaving the Christian faith and deciding that they have no religion. That's more than 750,000 people through the 10 years between two census figures. Disturbing figures that challenge us about what we're doing and how we're doing what we're doing. Let me add in some research from America, from the Barna Research Foundation, where George says this from his new research on the state of discipleship surveys. He records that 1% of church leaders of today's churches are doing very well at discipling new and young believers. What was it again that Jesus commissioned us to do? He goes on to say the surveys reveal that 60% of church leaders feel that their churches are discipling not too well. His summary is this: one of the implications of the research is for churches to rethink what is working in connecting with today's younger Christians, particularly when it comes to relational and mentoring forms of spiritual discipleship. So let's dig into why are we in this situation as we are at the moment. Imagine you are a brand newly appointed children's pastor at your church, or maybe you're a new parent where God has blessed you with a baby. Both of those scenarios beg an important first question. You go, what do I do in this new job in my church as a parent? What do I do? In my church, I need to run a Sunday program and a midweek club. I need to have take-home sheets. I run a holiday program in the holidays. As a parent, I need to feed this thing and water this thing and change its nappy. What do? We're driven by that. And after the dust settles a bit and a bit of routine, we dig into a bit of a deeper question. We actually say, I wonder, how should I do this job better? How should I be a better children's pastor? How should I be a better parent? Well, I should watch some training videos, go to a conference, read some books. As a parent, join a parent support group, go to a mother of preschoolers group, so I can learn how to do this better. And then after a while, hopefully, but maybe not, we get to the core question of why am I being a children's pastor? Why am I a parent? You see, for too much of our children's ministry, our youth ministry, our parenting strategies, we follow that direction. Driven by the what, we busy our lives with what. We then try and refine that a bit, but often we may miss the important question of why we're doing this. And if we keep following that same trajectory, we'll keep getting the same results. So, following the pattern and example of Jesus, perhaps we need to be countercultural. And let's reverse the current trends. So what would happen if we started with the central why question, and then we work out to eventually shape what it is that we do? And if we can agree that the large part of our why is that we want to help see lifelong active followers of Jesus shaped, then that begs the big and important question, and the one that is the focus of this video series: how is the best way of doing that? How do you make lifelong active followers of Jesus? And in your rethinking and in your discussion and your reading, some things will become priorities, will become into focus, and that will shape what you do. We need to be driven from the why towards the what to get a much better result. Since we're talking about apples, let me also talk about this apple. This fruit company has been producing phones for 20 years. And the figures for their models 6, 7, 8 and 10 are that they sold for each model more than 250 million phones. Each. That's a lot of phones. Now, just imagine with me for a moment, what would happen if half of those phones, half of Apple Model 7, were defective, broke down, didn't work? What would Apple do? Well, they would not be happy with the result. So they would do something to fix that. And I believe that they would go back and look at the schematics, the plans. There must be a problem in the plans here that's causing this very bad result. They'd go back to the factories and say, what's in the processing? There must be a fault here somewhere. They're driven by the outcomes to go back and fix what's not working to get a better outcome. I believe that is what would happen. Well, the research and the evidence from across the Western world, from all these books that I've read and the reports and others, and anecdotally from across the developing world, is that we're losing more than 50% of our young people from the Christian faith. Are we happy with that? I know I'm not. Is there something in our design, in our processes of discipleship, that is causing us to produce defective disciples? So that's enough to begin our journey, to stimulate a little bit of rethinking within you. I want to ask you to take some time now to reflect on and respond to what you've heard with those who are watching this video with you. And can I ask you that in your conversation to come up with your top 5 reasons for the question that is on your screen at the moment. We'll need that for our next episode. And in the next video, I want to focus on 2 aspects. Firstly, are we missing something from our biblical understanding of discipleship? And secondly, what can we learn from history that will help shape a different future? I hope you can join me then. So let's continue our journey. Now, I'm fairly sure that you've heard some of these comments coming from some people within your faith community that gathers on the weekend. While what we do when we gather as a church family on the weekend is an important part of the discipleship process, we must remember that discipleship is a 24/7 journey, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not just compartmentalised into 1-hour programs. If we look at Galatians chapter 4 and verse 19, the Apostle Paul gives us a window into a priority that he laboured to communicate to his readers. We read these words, "My dear children, for whom I am again in the pains of childbirth until Christ is formed in you. Now, this word formed in the Greek and the Hebrew comes from a number of different words, and most of them are based on the same word, which is around a potter who forms a pot. When God formed human beings in Genesis, it's that same concept of forming as a potter forms a pot, the shape and the object. But when Paul came to write this to his readers, he was wanting a different concept, not just the shape and the structure and the outward form, because we can look very good as we present ourselves to others, and I hope you like my shirt. But being a disciple is not about how we look on the outside, it's what's on the inside. And so Paul chose this word, this Greek word, which is the only time it is used in the whole of the New Testament. That's the word I want, Paul says, because that word, morphou, from which we get transformation, is about the substance of Christ. And that's what Paul wanted to see in followers of Jesus. So what can we learn from our biblical traditions and our practices to help us in our rethinking journey? Well, spiritual formation was a high value in God's writing and thinking, and as we read the scriptures. And as we read the scriptures, we see that spiritual formation was shaped largely in the context of family. It was a family-focused priority. Now, when I use that word that begins with F, family, people want to debate what does it mean. So let me cut through some of the modern debates and go back to what the original words meant in their context, how that shapes our thinking today. There are a number of different Hebrew words for family. More than 2,000 times we read variations of that in our Bible. The most commonly translated word for family is the word bait. Say that to the person next to you. Bait. Sound like a real Jewish person. Bait means household, home, household. It's a lovely inclusive word. Here's a picture of a Passover meal held in a bait. And the people who gathered there, whether they were strangers or whoever was under that roof on that night, was family. And I think family is a household is a great word as we think about family. The second most commonly used word is, I cannot pronounce it. You can have a go at that one. Be careful not to spit on somebody. But it means community. In the Hebrew, that was family. It's the people around you, the people you journey with, your extended family, the larger community. So those two words mean family in the Jewish tradition, in the Hebrew language. And I think it helps shape our understanding of family as well. It is household plus community working together. That's family. The same concept is carried forward in the New Testament with the words oikos and paraortos, which pick up the same ideas. So family from a biblical and Hebrew perspective is so much more than our nuclear definition. Spiritual formation today, as it was then, is household and community working together. And that was a tradition for centuries that we followed through until basically we came to one of the major sociological changes in our history, the Industrial Revolution, when home-based businesses were changed as dads went out to factories, mums went out to factories, children went out to factories as well. One author says this: time was when the whole of life went forward in the family, in a circle of loved, familiar faces. That time has gone forever. It makes us very different from our ancestors. What was happening then was the fragmentation of bait, of household, of homes. But an even greater concern as well. We celebrate the fact that in that period, when families were fragmented, where children were working in factories, they weren't able to go to school. And so this man, Robert Raikes, an Englishman, saw a missional opportunity that if they were working Monday through Saturday, they weren't learning to read and write. So he began a ministry where he had a school on Sunday so as to teach children how to read and write, meeting that social need. And because he was a man of faith, he taught them the good news about Jesus as well. Fantastic. And many thousands and thousands of people came to faith as a result of that movement. He had a very creative name for this new missionary endeavour. It was called what was it called again? Sunday school. A Sunday school. And it continues today. Now, while we celebrate that, we also acknowledge that this was a time of disempowerment of Bait. Not only was it fragmented, now it was disempowered because now the church, the faith community, stepped into a space to provide the Christian education for the children who weren't getting it at home because of what was changing in their society. Sadly, that has continued through the centuries since then. So this broad picture of spiritual formation being family-focused, Bait and community working together, has been reduced in those days and continuing today largely into a much narrower vision of child-focused Christian education. During that period in the 19th century, agencies like the Boys Brigade, the one that I've served for the last 40 years, Scripture Union. We began as a children's special service mission, operating in a child-focused Christian education sector, a much narrower quadrant of a larger picture where spiritual formation happens in a family-focused spiritual formation dimension. So if we want to reclaim and rethink what discipleship looks like, we need to think of the broader picture of how can this and that work together to see lifelong active followers of Jesus. All right, grab a sheet of paper, turn to a new page in your book, get a drawing app on your device, and would you draw 8 small squares on your piece of paper on your device? Now, keep your arm around so that your neighbour can't see what you're doing. What I want you to do is, in your first square, I want you to draw some lines to divide that square into 4 equal parts. You can do it. Don't look at your neighbour. In the first square, draw some lines, divide that square into 4 equal parts, where each part, if you cut them out, would be identical as the other 3. That's pretty easy. I wonder if you could do it in the second square. Same instructions, but divide it differently to the way you did it in the first square. Ooh, creative, can you do that? Oh, that's easy as well. Could you do number 3? Can you divide a square into 4 equal parts 3 different ways? Yes. I'm sure you've all got these on your screen. Can you do number 4? This is a challenge question. Can you divide a square into 4 equal parts a different way, a 4th different way? I can see some of the hands on the chin, some of the smoke coming. How do you do that? How do you do that? And if you've done 4, feeling good about yourself, can you do it a 5th way? I have seen it done. All right. In the interest of time, I need to move on. Let me demonstrate what number 4 could look like. Perhaps it could look like this. And you'll go, whoa, you've got some curved lines. I didn't say curved lines. I simply said draw some lines. You could go that way or that way. I wonder why most of you got stuck on 3 or 4. This way, that way, and then I don't know what else to do. How many different ways can you cut a square into 4 equal parts? I reckon about this many ways, and perhaps a few more. All we need is a bit of creativity, thinking differently. So, I think that's a picture of discipleship. How many different ways can you form a disciple? Put them in Sunday school. Enroll them in the kids club. Read the Bible with my family at night. And no, I've run out of ideas. So I wonder what you see here. Many years ago now, magic eye pictures were all the rage. Couldn't get enough books. And if you stare at a picture long enough, you can see that there's actually a picture within a picture. Many of you looking at this picture will think, I see a lot of peanuts. Well, actually, there are a lot of peanuts there. And I wonder, as we think about the picture of discipleship that's happening across your community, your world, the world today, we see a lot of activity, lots of programs and resources and activity that's happening, a lot of a mess. but can we see through the activity and the busyness to actually see what is happening behind? And are we actually achieving our why? I think the ongoing challenge is to look through all the busyness and to consider, is there a more strategic approach? Again, let's be driven by the outcomes we're seeing across the world with so many people walking away. So you may like to come back and see if you can look beyond the peanuts to see what is hidden inside the peanuts. And if you can't see it, the answer is, I'll tell you at the end of the video. About 50 years ago, a man called Thomas Groome came up with a formula, which is the one that he says needs to be employed if you want to effect real change in anything. Now, we're on a journey together. We want to effect real change in terms of discipling outcomes. And the formula that he came up with is on the screen. I'll pause for a moment while the rapturous applause dies down. What does that mean? I plus F equals T. Thomas Groome said that if you want to effect change, first of all, people need information about what it is that they are being informed about so as to make a decision about change. So information is a key part of effecting change. However, and in the discipling strategies within our churches and homes today, we do a lot of informing. Sunday schools, children's church, vacation Bible schools, Sunday school lessons, devotional take-home sheets. So much information, important in the process. However, Thomas Groome says there's another piece to effecting change. And the F in his formula stands for formation. To information, we add formation. The experiential stuff that helps to form a changed worldview, a changed attitude, a changed priority. For example, if I want to learn to ride a bike, if you want to teach your child to ride a bike, all you need to do is give them a book on how to ride a bike. Read the information and they're good to go, right? I don't think so. I think you need a grazed knee, broken collarbone, sore head, because in that formational experience of falling off, they learn to find their balance. The information as you teach and explain the dynamics as well as the formational experience then leads to a different outcome. And the T in Thomas Groome's formula stands for, call it out together, information plus formation equals transformation. And that's what we want to see. We want to see true transformation, transformed lives who are informed and formed in their faith. I want you to pause the video now, and I want you in your groups, with your neighbours, on your own. Reflect on your own faith journey. What's brought you to this point? And can you identify some of the formational experiences that helped form your faith? Not just sitting in your children's church or just listening to the Bible stories read by your dad at night. What were the experiences, the formational experiences that helped form your faith?